Dubai Ports World, DP World as it's known, has made an offer to buy 100% of South Africa's Imperial Logistics for 12.7 billion rand. DP World is one of the world's largest operators of marine ports and inland cargo terminals, stretching from gateways in London to hubs in Africa, Russia, India and the Americas. The deal is expected to close by the first quarter of 2022. DP World handles an estimated 10% of the world's global container traffic. We speak now to Esha Mansingh, Executive Vice President of Corporate Affairs and Investor Relations at Imperial. Thank you so much for your time. So you have entered into a transaction implementation agreement. What are we talking about essentially, and what is contained in that agreement?
That's absolutely right, and good afternoon, and thanks for having me. Certainly a material announcement, as you've mentioned earlier, a firm intention by DP World, and they're making a cash offer. And it effectively entails them acquiring all of the issued ordinary shares of Imperial, by a virtual scheme of arrangement. And the offer that is proposed on the table, which is still subject to, of course, shareholder approval and other regulatory approvals, particularly in South Africa, is 66 Rand per ordinary share. So in a nutshell, that covers the key terms of the agreement.
Right. As you rightfully mentioned, it's subject to approval by South African authorities and Imperial shareholders. What factors would be considered in giving the green light?
So first of all, Imperial being listed on the JSE, and as we've just mentioned, the big green light will have to come from our shareholders. So that's, one of the steps we need to cross over the next few months as we progress. The other big, regulatory engagements that we're going to be having will obviously be the Competition Commission in South Africa, together with other regulatory bodies in some of the other countries of operation. But I would just like to stress that, Imperial, together with DP World, are very aware of its commitment to the African continent and to South Africa, particularly, in terms of the social investment, the BE requirements, etc. So, we're hoping to progress with many of those that we've already announced as we go through these developments and engagements over the next few months.
Speaking of your commitment to the continent, Imperial has been looking to dispose of non-core assets and position itself as the gateway to Africa. So if this deal goes through, what will it mean for the business?
So if this deal goes through, it means that all of Imperial's businesses as we currently have it will be included. This includes our international logistics business, which we previously announced was non-core to our Gateway to Africa strategy. But of course, with DP World now being a global logistics and ports player, there are significant synergies, between Imperial's African coast businesses and our footprint in Africa, as well as our existing European businesses, with DP World. So both businesses will be part of the transaction going forward.
What about BEE? What has been discussions, or what have discussions been like where that is concerned?
So with regards to BEE, Imperial recently announced, that it will be moving forward with a 25% BEE shareholding, particularly in its logistics Africa operations in South Africa. That BEE deal is still subject to Imperial shareholder approval, and that general meeting will take place at the end of July. It is still a condition of this particular offer. So we're hoping to conclude that with a positive vote from our existing shareholders in the next few weeks. And it's critical for both ourselves as well as, the potential new buyer to ensure that we are correctly empowered and that deal is successful. And, we also require it to ensure that we remain competitive in the South African context, in addition to simply being the right thing to do.
Esha, if you'd indulge me, please, I'd like us to go a couple of steps back and perhaps just give us context in terms of how we even got to this point where you are being made this offer.
Absolutely. So look, Imperial's been through a significant transformation journey from a strategic perspective over, the past 2 years. And many of you have followed that story. We've tried very hard to clean up the portfolio and rationalize it to focus specifically on our core competitive advantages, being, the African continent and our leading positions in market access and logistics. So a lot of work and time and effort has been put into that and rationalizing and making us a very focused business. That being said, we've made significant progress on that journey, but we were approached by DP World, so they approached our board and they were very interested in not only, looking at our logistics international business, which, as you know, was up for sale, but they were also very interested in the significant African footprint that Imperial has developed and the potential synergies of the broader business. So they approached our board with the offer, and following on from that, we put together an independent board which excluded our executive directors. The independent board also engaged with an independent party, to consider the offer from a fair and reasonable perspective. And the independent party did confirm the offer to be fair and reasonable, and hence the independent board of Imperial is now, putting forward the offer for Imperial shareholder approval. So that's where we are in the process. I think from a management perspective, just looking at some of the strategic synergies that could be in play with DP World, we're very excited about the opportunity to support the deal. And as you rightfully mentioned earlier, there's a lot of value extraction that Imperial could find in benefiting from DP World's leading technology, their global networks, and key trade lane volumes, to mention just a few.
Esha, please, I'd just like some clarity. Has Imperial been awarded contracts by the country to import some unspecified quantities of coronavirus vaccine doses?
That's correct. We were one of the two parties that were, awarded the tender a few months ago, as you may recall. I think it was back to March or April to import vaccinations. But following on from that, every time there's an opportunity to do so, it will be considered on a tender basis. So yes, we are one of two parties when the opportunities arise to actually import vaccinations.
So given that the deal is expected to close by the first quarter of 2022, it is said that this virus is going to be with us for a very long time. What impact will that have on this, if at all?
Look, the indications that we have as it currently stands is, we will continue with Imperial as business as usual. Our capabilities that we have certainly in the South African market will remain as is. So we don't foresee that, this deal, which is effectively a change of ownership of Imperial, if successful, will not impact any of our activities as it currently stands today.
Esha Mansingh is the Executive Vice President of Corporate Affairs and Investor Relations at Imperial.